"Just kill me fast," she said. The Hell's Angels lifted her shirt and saw what they'd branded into her. The night air was thick with dust and gasoline, and the sound of rumbling engines echoed across the empty desert road. Under the flickering neon lights of a lonely gas station, a girl stumbled into the glow, barefoot, shaking, and bruised. Her flannel shirt hung loosely from her shoulders, streaked with dirt and dried blood. Her eyes, wide and hollow, looked like they had forgotten what safety felt like. The night was silent except for her shallow breaths and the faint buzzing of a neon open sign. Then, out of the darkness, came the thunder, a convoy of motorcycles tearing down the highway, their headlights slicing through the blackness. The Hell's Angels had arrived. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion even in the hardest hearts, then before we go any further, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because what happened next will remind you that even the roughest souls can carry the deepest humanity. The girl's name was Lena Carter. Just 22 years old, but her eyes told the story of someone who had lived through hell. 2 years earlier, she had been kidnapped by a violent outlaw gang known as the Ravens, a group that thrived on fear and cruelty. They didn't just take her freedom, they took her identity. They branded her like property, burning their insignia into her skin as a message: she belonged to them. For months, Lena had endured torment, forced to obey, to serve, to survive. But tonight, something inside her snapped. She had escaped, bleeding and terrified, running through the desert with nothing but the clothes on her back and the will to live. When she saw the motorcycles approaching, her first thought was panic. Another gang. Another nightmare. She fell to her knees on the cold concrete, clutching her ribs where the pain pulsed with every breath. As the bikes slowed and surrounded her, she whispered through trembling lips, "Just kill me fast, please." Her voice was raw, empty, stripped of all hope. The leader of the group, a man known as Jackson Reaper Cole, stepped off his Harley. His long hair fell over his shoulders, tattoos crawling down his arms, eyes sharp but not unkind. He had seen many things in his years: blood, betrayal, violence, but something about the broken girl before him struck him differently. She wasn't just scared. She was destroyed. As she knelt there, shaking, Reaper slowly approached. He told her she was safe, that no one would hurt her, but his words sounded like a foreign language to her ears. When he tried to help her stand, she pulled away, her body tensing in terror. Reaper signaled to his men to hold back, then gently said to his medic, "Doc," to check her injuries. But when Doc knelt and began to lift her torn shirt to see the wound, the entire group froze. There, seared into her skin just below her ribs, were the letters, "Property of the Ravens." The burn mark was deep, old, but unmistakable. The air seemed to thicken. The men who had seen violence their whole lives stood silent, their faces turning grim with quiet fury. Lena turned her face away, whispering almost inaudibly, "They said I'd never belong to anyone else. That even if I escaped, no one would ever want something that's already been marked." Her tears hit the pavement, mixing with the dirt beneath her knees. Reaper's jaw tightened. He didn't say a word for a long time. Finally, he looked at her and said softly, "Not anymore." Then, he lifted her gently and carried her into the gas station diner. The neon lights flickered above them as he set her down in a booth, his crew standing guard by the door. They gave her food, water, and space. Slowly, piece by piece, Lena told them her story: the abduction, the nights of abuse, the threats, the branding, and how she finally fought back. The angels listened in silence. When she finished, Reaper stood and said just one thing to his men: "No one does that to a woman," and walks away. What followed was swift and quiet. The Hell's Angels weren't saints, but they had their code. They found the Raven crew's compound before dawn. When the engines roared outside their hideout, the Ravens didn't have time to react. What happened there never made it to the news, but by sunrise, the Raven crew no longer existed. Back at the gas station, Lena woke up to the smell of coffee and the warmth of a blanket around her shoulders. The angels hadn't left her. They stayed. Reaper sat across from her, quiet as always. She asked if he'd hurt them, and he only said, "They won't hurt anyone again." In the days that followed, the angels took Lena under their protection. They brought her to their clubhouse, where she stayed in a small guest room with a lock on the inside, a simple thing, but it meant more to her than they could understand. For the first few days, she barely spoke. She jumped at sudden sounds, avoided mirrors, and had nightmares that made her scream herself awake. But the angels never judged her. They gave her time. Doc changed her bandages every day, treating the scar where the brand had burned her. One afternoon, as she stared at it in the mirror, she whispered, "It'll never go away." Reaper, standing behind her, said, "Scars don't disappear, Lena. But they stop hurting once you decide what they mean." Over time, Lena began to heal. She cooked meals for the men, helped clean the bikes, even smiled once in a while. The laughter of these rough, loud bikers started to feel like a strange kind of family. They didn't see her as property. They saw her as one of their own. Months later, on the anniversary of her escape, Reaper took Lena to a tattoo artist the angels trusted. The old brand had faded into a dark scar, but that day, they covered it with something new. Across the burn, the artist inked the words, "I am free." Tears streamed down her face as she looked at the mirror. For the first time, she saw herself not as what was done to her, but as who she had become. A survivor. A fighter. Word spread about what the angels had done. Other women began reaching out, those who had been trapped, hurt, broken. Lena decided she wouldn't run from her past anymore. She started volunteering at a shelter for abused women, sharing her story to give others hope. When people asked how she found the courage to keep going, she would simply smile and say, "Because someone believed I was worth saving." Reaper never took credit. He would just ride by the shelter sometimes, leave a donation in the box, and disappear down the road. But Lena always knew. One evening, during a charity ride organized by the angels to raise money for the shelter, Lena stood on a small stage before hundreds of people. The sun dipped behind the hills, and the motorcycles glowed under the orange sky. She took a deep breath and said, "I once thought the world was only full of monsters. But sometimes, the people you fear the most are the ones who show you the meaning of humanity." There wasn't a sound in the crowd, just the quiet hum of engines and the glint of tears on weathered faces. Reaper stood in the back, his arms crossed, a faint smile beneath his beard. He didn't need thanks. Watching her stand strong was enough. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Let others hear Lena's story and remember that hope can be found in the most unexpected places. And before we close, if you believe that scars don't define us, but the courage to rise from them does, drop a red heart in the comments below. Let's fill this story with love and strength for every survivor who's still fighting their way back to freedom, because sometimes, it takes the darkest night to reveal the brightest souls.
I just want to take a moment to say a huge thank you to each and every one of you. Folded hands, your love, support, likes, comments, and subscriptions mean the world to me. Without you, this journey wouldn't be possible. Every view, every share, and every encouraging word keeps me motivated to create more content for you all. I'm truly grateful to have such an amazing community by my side. Let's keep growing together and making this journey even more special. Red Heart.